Hi guys, what's up? It's Will back once again for another fight card prediction. We're here for UFC London. Blaydes versus Aspinall is our main event as the UFC make the return after the unbelievable card they had back in March. They just had to come back and they came back relatively quicker than I thought they would, like 4 months later, with a pretty solid card. So I know there's a lot of people going down there. I wish you all the best. I hope you have a great time. I say I'm not the biggest fan of London, so I usually don't make my journeys down to there. But you've got yourself a good card. So yeah, coming from a sweltering hot 31 degrees of Scotland at the minute, I am melting. I had heat stroke for the last week. I didn't really look after myself at a 20 degree heat. So going around in a 30 degree heat, it's not for me. So I'm here to talk some fights, and hopefully I can find some bets. I have one bet for this card. There's another one I really like on the main card there, which I think I might go ahead and put my money down today before the lines move a little bit. So yeah, I'm going to get into these fights here, guys. I appreciate all the support. Sorry for missing last week, but I just didn't feel up to it with the heat stroke and whatever else. It's just I wasn't in a great space for that anyway. So yeah, let's start off the card. Nicholas Dalby against Claudio Silva is our first fight of the night there. And I like Nicholas Dalby. It's a kind of striker v grappler type of matchup. I only really see Claudio Silva as being sub or bust in this spot. Even though I say sub or bust, he can kind of keep rounds relatively close. I think if you fight smart against someone like Claudio Silva, then you can have a lot of success. I always rein back to the Danny Roberts fights where I really thought he had that fight in the bag, did everything he should have, and then just a lack of fight IQ from Danny, I think, lost in the fight and he got armbarred in the third there. Followed that with a win over Cole Williams, but since then he's dropped to Court McGee and James Krause. Dalby, these are two guys that are kind of elder statesmen of this welterweight division. One at 39, soon to be 40, and Nicholas at 37 years old, a guy that I've been watching for many years. He's also coming off an L to Tim Means. Relatively good, sharp striker. I think he's pretty solid everywhere. Can go really hard for a good 15 minutes. Can fight across all kind of aspects of the game. Like I say, I think if he doesn't get subbed early on here, I think he can ride out a decision. Don't really like the line. I think the line is super high. There's a lot of lines actually in this card that I think are like humongous. If you're good at rounding out dogs and you think you might take a shot in some spots, and this might be the card for you. I mean, he's coming off that win before the loss to Daniel Rodriguez, which I thought, looking back, it was a close fight. I thought that Rodriguez clearly kind of won that fight there, but taking nothing away from Dalby, fought hard, fought tough as he does here. I don't think he gets subbed, so I think he runs out a pretty much. I think he's going to be the winner, either a third round TKO or a decision. Decision to me is most probable, so I am going to go with Nicholas Dalby there. Moving on, Mandy Bum against Victoria Leonardo. I tried to watch Mandy Bum, and I've did this before. I've tried to watch some of her fights, and I can't do it for too many fights. Honestly, I watched the last one in the UFC. I watched one in the regionals. I don't think she's a great fighter. I don't even think she's UFC kind of quality, if I'm being honest with you. And then I looked at the odds, and I'm like, she's a favourite in the UFC. And when I looked at the Leonardo side, I just didn't see how that really was. I know that she's got an 8-4 record. She's got losses on there, obviously, but they're two like good fighters, decent fighters. Manon Fiorot, she might be a fight or two away from a title shot in that division. Melissa Gatto, we know that she's a finisher. She hits very hard. Erin Blanchfield was another loss away back when she got hit with a head kick there. She's a really up-and-comer, good up-and-comer. Miranda Maverick's got another L on there. So she's fought the far tougher caliber opposition to what Mandy Bum has. And I think she can mix up a little bit more. When you look at Bum, the one thing that really stands out is she's got a big reach advantage here over Leonardo. But outside of that, I don't see many spots where she is the better fighter in many instances. I know she kind of comes in and out of SBG Ireland, which I don't think is ever the greatest look nowadays with that. Leonardo, like I say, she's been around quite a bit of time. She can mix in her mix up her strikes to mix in with her takedowns too. I think she can hold her own in the feet, get inside the reach of Mandy, and I do think she can get opportunistic takedowns. I wasn't impressed with anything that I've seen in the Lipsky fight from Mandy that makes me shout, yeah, she's definitely the favourite in this fight. It is pretty low level women's MMA, and we all know that. I think in that kind of side there, you take the underdog. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Victoria Leonardo here. I'm very close to betting her. She's plus 130. I think that line will tighten up as fight week goes on. I'd be surprised if it didn't. But when I look at this fight, I think she has more ways of winning the fight. And I think she's the kind of more hard-nosed fighter in this spot. So I'll take Victoria Leonardo here. I just don't know whether I'm going to get through to a bet on her. These are some of the spots that I've kind of been kicking myself for, where I'm like, well, I really like that dog, and the dog will come through, but I didn't bet it, and I kind of kicked myself for doing that. But I'll take Leonardo for the win there. Jai Herbert against Kyle Nelson. Let me bring up the betting line for this one. Sorry, I had that up. But I didn't like the high odds that were on Jai Herbert. I think it was minus 300 or minus 275. Minus 275 here in the UK. I mean, again, when you look at the caliber of opposition that he has fought in his UFC tenure, Jai Herbert, he's beat who he's supposed to beat, but he's lost who you would think he would lose to. He beat Kamaworthy. He's not got much of a chin. Jai Herbert is really good, slick, long striking. He has power. He can mix it up across his strikes as well. He's just very dangerous on the feet, but he is also very reliable to get knocked out himself. His 3 L's in the UFC are to really top fighters. Masaran Duba, I think I bet against him there because the line had came that much that Masaran Duba was the underdog at dog odds, so I bet him there. And he was doing really well in that fight until getting caught in the third round, then taken out. Mokaev was just a massive step up caliber opposition. Mokaev can mix up with the top 15 of that division. I don't believe Jai Herbert can. And then eventually get taken out there. Then he gave a great account himself against Topuria, who I'm very high on there. Dropped him, hurt him, really marked him up. But then that liability with that chin caught a massive knockout. And I mean, we are only barely 4 months on from that fight. His chin is not good. Kyle Nelson, I think, has only got a round of gas in him, so it's hard to be super. 5 to 7 minutes is how much I kind of give him. His only kind of wins in the UFC, or his win in the UFC was Polo Reyes, no longer in the UFC. His losses to Diego Ferreira, good competition. Billy Quarantillo, good competition. Matt Sales, that's a bad deal to have in your record, in my opinion. To me, I think that Jai Herbert is always liable to get knocked out, but I think that Kyle Nelson is also very reliable at getting finished here. It's just who you prefer. Like I say, I think Nelson is very live early on. But for me, I think Herbert's the more technical striker, the better striker, big power. I think that he lands a shot here on Kyle Nelson, but there's no way I'm playing it with that odds. I think if you're playing him, playing this fight, maybe it is dog or pass, because Nelson can crack, and I think Herbert's chin is there to get hit. But for me, I'm going to pick a stoppage win for Jai Herbert. Want absolutely no path to kind of bet in this fight whatsoever. But I've got him to win that one there. Flyweight division, we've got a very young up-and-coming prospect with a hell of a lot of hype on him. We've got Mohamed Mokaev against the newcomer and Charles Johnson, the LFA champion, who's coming in here on a really good win streak, taking fights on short notice, getting back in the cage, and everyone is kind of writing him off. I think the betting line's kind of off, personally, myself. I don't think we've seen enough of Mohamed Mokaev to really him warrant being a minus 600 favourite. Now, I can see where he could potentially make this fight look like a minus 600 in his spot. But he's still very young in his career. He's still very young in his UFC career. He's got so much hype behind him. He's hyping himself up. He's got an army of guys that are hyping him up. I've known about this kid since before even, I think I knew about Mokaev. I think I met him when he was 15 in Manchester years ago. and he had that mindset that he was going to be champion, he was going to do this, and he's shown it. Went to American top team for majority of this camp here. Interested to see how that plays out. He's been there with some good guys from the 135-pound weight division with your Munozes and so on. And we've seen his UFC debut. He's not only just a grappler, which I think is his strongest point. He caught Cody Durden with that massive knee, put him on, rocked him up pretty badly, got a choke, got him out of there in that first round there within inside the first minute. Charles Johnson, from what I've seen, a really good, slick, savvy striker, long, will throw a lot of kicks, some good boxing techniques. I think he fights out the southpaw stance, and is there to kind of throw down and hit you up a little bit. Have seen him take him down. Carlos, I think it's Mota Tizil took him down. There was another dude there, I think it was Campillo, I think his name was, took him down. So I've seen him taken down with kicks. I've seen him taken down with a double leg. But I've also seen him reverse position, get back to his feet, work his way back up from his back against the cage. So Charles Johnson, I think, will be a lot more game than what his betting line says here. I think that if Muhammad wants to come out here and maybe prove something with his striking, I think that's not a good idea. To me, I think if he grapples relentlessly, I think he can tire out Charles Johnson. Like I said, I don't like the line for Mokaev, so if you're going to take a shot on Johnson, I can see it. I want no part of it, personally. I think Muhammad here has a clear path to victory through his grappling, could potentially get a stoppage due to his submission grappling. But again, he's still so young in his career. I think that just the betting line is a tad off. Plus 400 in Charles Johnson. I know there's people that are taking a small swing in him. I've seen I think there's a guy on here, he'll be watching, and he's put 250 quid on him to get near enough a grand back. So I wish you all the best, big man. I think that bigger balls than I have betting that kind of line. But yeah, I'm going to pick Muhammad Mokaev. I'm going to pick him via decision. I think Charles Johnson's going to give him a good fight. We're going to find out a little bit more about Muhammad in this spot here, but that is my pick. Makwan Amirkhani against Jonathan Pearce. Never been on the Makwan Amirkhani train. You guys know that if you've been around me long enough. I'm just not a fan of him personally. I've seen him at fight weeks, and he's very cocky and he thinks very highly of himself, and he's very arrogant and ignorant to other people. But the guy's dangerous in the first round. He grapples. He comes to grapple. He can wrap you up in chokes and get you out of there, and that's what he did against Mike Grundy. I picked Mike Grundy. I was very confident that Mike Grundy was going to get him out of there that last fight. Makwan came in a lot more calmer demeanour, maybe a bit more reserved, maybe matured a little bit there, and took Mike Grundy out. And there was a lot of kind of emotion with Mike Grundy that week with his father, who's got terminal cancer and so on. And fought a beautiful first round, got there with a beautiful submission. And that's how I think he wins this fight here, is getting Pearce out early, because if he doesn't, I think Jonathan Pearce's pace is going to cook him. And I think there's going to be numerous points in this fight where Jonathan Pearce can get this guy out of there. Pearce I didn't think he looked all that great in his last fight against Christian Rodriguez, I think it was, where he did get taken down. I thought he looked a little bit sloppy, but he also got takedowns, multiple submission attempts there. Before that, I was actually really impressed with Omar Morales' win. And the Kai Kamaka one got him out of there in the second round as well with a lot of takedowns. I don't think he really wants to come out here and engage in grappling with Makwan Amirkhani, because I think Makwan is very sneaky with his chokes. I think if he was to kind of cook him in that first round, going into rounds 2 and 3, I think there is a stoppage there waiting for him, if not a fairly dominant decision. Just don't get taken down, put on your back, been put in positions where Amirkhani can wrap something up. And I think that he can come out here and win pretty convincingly. Minus 175, I think is a fairly decent number. I think I saw minus 163, I want to say, back in Saturday. That was actually probably the time for me to get in there. Minus 175 I still think is bettable, but I don't know whether I'm going to get to this fight, because I've tried to go against Makwan before and he seems to get me every time. Jason Knight was another one of those fights where he got me as well. But I'm going to go for a late third round TKO from Jonathan Pearce. I think he's going to cook him with his pace and just persistence in this fight here. And I've got him to win that fight there. Nathaniel Wood against Charles Rosa. I think this is it should be a fairly easy fight for Nathaniel Wood. Charles Rosa doesn't post much out as being maybe a submission off his back. A hell of a lot of experience, not great across any aspect except maybe for his jiu-jitsu. But that's like I say, he's got great defensive jiu-jitsu. I don't think he's offensive jiu-jitsu as much. You don't see him really stopping many guys with it, but he has fought a lot of top caliber guys and stopped their submission attempts as well. But can be taken down easily. I think he can be beat up on the feet. And I think Nathaniel Wood, this is a good introduction to him, for him, to the 145-pound division as he makes his way up there with his only 2 L's in the UFC to tough guys in Casey Kenny and former UFC championship challenger in John Dodson, where he got knocked out in the 3rd round there after giving a spirited performance, but was always a little bit down. And he's got some decent wins over Teco. John Castaneda, I think, is a good win. Andre Ewell's always not a bad win either. But he's not fought in, a year and a half, coming on 2 years, so there might be a little bit of ring rust here. I think Charles Rosa is a tough out to get him out of there. He's very grizzled. He's taking a lot of shots. He's got a lot of durability. So I think for me, the opportunity of a late stoppage is there. But I think for me, Nathaniel Wood via decision is kind of what I would play him at. I think it's -110 in the UK, and that's far better than the odds of him straight, which are Nathaniel Wood -450. So that's high. I apologise if there's noise. There's lots of kids outside enjoying the sunshine. So if it's a little bit noisy, that's where it's coming from. So yeah, I'm going to pick Nathaniel Wood. I think he gets a decision win here and introduces himself to 145 pounds pretty nicely. Marc Diakiese against Damir Hadzovic, and this was when I was like, oh, I wonder. I'm a fan of Damir Hadzovic. I have been for many years. And I was thinking, right, I'm going to get big odds in this guy. Is it worth a shot? And then went in and watched tape, and I was like, no. I think the -300 on Marc Diakiese is kind of warranted, and especially if he fights the type of fight he did in his last fight against Vyacheslav Borishev. He can get takedowns. He's very, very aggressive in the feet also. So I think he's an all-around really good striker, a good fighter, I should say. Who kind of goes up and down in confidence. When his confidence is high, I think he can do a lot of things in there, but he has been in some bad spots in the UFC, but he also has faced some very tough guys in the UFC. You look at his schedule of fighters that he's fought. Haqparast, I thought, had a great fight that night there, where he used low kicks and really shut him down. But he's been able to land Vanata, not an easy out, did well there to get the W. Dan Hooker, Joe Duffy, Fiziev, Alves is so explosive in that first round. Ultimately got caught with a big shot and got caught in the gilly. But here, he's not going to have to really worry about submission skills and getting caught with something. Damir Hadzovic is a striker. He will sit there. I think he's very, very stationary. He plants his feet, looks to kind of throw down, coming off a win over Yancy Medeiros. Before that, he got stopped by McCann when he made that step up, and Christos Giagos, who I think is a tough out in that division, honestly. I've been in a couple of spots where I've cashed a bet on him. The Marcin Held fight, he was losing that one, caught a knockout in the 3rd round there. And I also bet him against Nick Hein. That's going back nearly 4 years ago now. So I think that this is a good spot for Marc Diakiese. Just do what you did against Borshev. Mix it up with your striking, get takedowns, control time. I think he can have numerous minutes of control in this fight and be the big minute round winner across this whole entire fight. So I don't see him getting Hadzovic out of there. Line is high, but I think it is kind of warranted for Marc Diakiese. I think he's got all the talent in the world. He just really needs to start to show it. But I've got Marc Diakiese there. Maybe a late stoppage, probably going to be a decision. This is a fight that got added last week, which I think it's a great fight. Sorry, guys. Ludovit Klein against Mason the Dragon Jones. Great fight. One that I did not see coming. Klein was supposed to fight UFC 277 next week against Ignacio Bahamundes, but visa issues came in. There's been a whole load of visa issues, I think, with the UFC from what I'm hearing. Fighters getting into America and so on. And then they kind of played an audible here and they brought Ludovit over to London, and Mason was calling for a fight, ready to go. And this is a really good fight. I've been pretty high on Ludovit Klein. I felt a wee bit annoyed in some spots because I felt like I should have cash bet that Trezano by decision. I bet Klein via decision. I thought he had that. I really did. And then last time out, I mean, he showed what he's all about there. with that win over Devonta Smith, who is, as expected, from my end, is completely kind of faded out. He starts off strong, but then fades out pretty badly. Before that, the loss against Trezano, the loss to Landwehr, and then you look at Mason Jones. I've watched this guy's entire career, watched him come through Cage Warriors, moved himself over to the UFC. A very exciting fighter. Great fights he's had in the UFC so far, with even when he's losses. So he was a double champion Cage Warriors, came in against Mike Davis, a guy that we don't see enough of, in my opinion. We need to see more of that cat. I wonder where he is at. Lost a very, very competitive fight. I did think the right decision was piecing up Alain Patrick, something rotten. Was absolutely putting it to him before Patrick got a little poke in the eye and didn't want anything more of that fight. They tried to make it again. Alain Patrick didn't want any more of that punishment. And then he had that fight against David Onama, where at the time we didn't know much about David Onama, but we found out a hell of a lot through that fight. And since then, that kid is very talented and a very, very dangerous fighter to be facing at 150. I think 145, I think, is where he's fighting at now. So, and then you've got Klein here, a very good striker, great high kicks. And then you've got the kind of Terminator and Mason Jones, who comes forward, will eat a lot of strikes. That's something you don't like, especially in the UFC with high caliber strikers, because all it takes is one clean shot and eventually you could be hurt and you could go down from that. But when you watch the Nate Landwehr fight, I don't think Klein likes pressure too much, and I think the pressure that Mason Jones can put on him, I think is going to break him in some part of this fight here. So if Mason Jones doesn't get hit with anything too hard and too clean, I think that he can kind of work his way and break down Ludovit Klein the longer this fight goes on, and that's kind of where I'm going. So I'm going to late stoppage for Mason Jones in this one here. I think a submission is in play. I think a knockout is in play. I think he can win any of this anyway. He can win a very dominant decision as long as he doesn't get hit with something big there. Because I think that Mason Jones, I love watching Mason Jones fight, but I'm also a big fan of Ludovit Klein. I was calling for this guy to win the UFC many, many moons ago, but I've got Mason Jones there to win that one there. So I think we're on to the main card now. Paul Craig against Volkan Oezdemir. Verju. He's such a great fighter to watch, honestly, because you know what he wants to do, and he still finds a way to do it, whether he initiates it or there's fight IQ lapses from his opponents like Krylov did. But you just can't go to the ground with this guy. If you do, you give him every opportunity to catch something, and he does it every time. That Krylov fight, I'm a sucker for Nikita Krylov. I bet him in so many fights. And that one there, I was like, I don't like this fight for him because I thought the lapses in his IQ would come to the fore. It did. He got caught there. Paul Craig is on a really good run of wins here in the UFC, and he's in the best spot of his career. I mean, he is still really, really young within his whole entire career. He didn't really start until a couple of years before he was in the UFC. So wins over Antigulov, got a triangle choke there. Got the win over Shogun. Always nice to have that. I mean, his last three wins, Shogun, Jamal Hill, I think that was a lapse in IQ, in my opinion, from Jamal Hill. I think he would have absolutely whooped his ass if he kept on the feet, went to the ground, ran the chance of getting caught with something, and he got his arm snapped in half. Then Krylov, like I say, he made that chance of kind of jeopardy of going to the ground where Paul Craig caught in that triangle choke. You can't mess around with this guy on the ground. You really can't. Volkan here, he has to know that if he keeps us on the feet here, there is a high probability that he knocks out Paul Craig. I think that he's been kind of slowly slipping down as Volkan Oezdemir since he kind of moved himself out of America. There was all the problems there. And I think he's now in Switzerland. He does his camps out of there. He's lost his last two fights to two of the top guys in the division, Magomed Ankalaev, and he got knocked out against Yuri Prohashka. I really like Volkan Oezdemir here. I just don't think that you can keep going to the well with these submissions and catching them. I just can't. He could, though, with Paul Craig, the way he is. but I just don't see it here. I hope Paul Craig wins. He's from Scotland. I always try to back the Scottish fighters, hope they win in the UFC because it gives us every opportunity of events coming back here to Scotland on the doorstep. I just don't see it. I think Volkan plays it smart, and I think that he knocks out Paul Craig in the middle to later part of this fight here. There might be a couple of squirrely moments there where maybe Paul tries to get him to the ground, maybe opportunistically does, but I'm thinking of a bet on Volkan Oezdemir. I could play him straight minus 150. I don't know what the knockout would be, but I am looking at possibly having money on Volkan Oezdemir, but I've tried to go against Paul Craig in the past, and he's caught me a couple of times there as well. So Volkan TKO is going to be my pick for that one, and that one there. Molly McCann against Hannah Goldy. To me, this is just an absolute set-up fight. It should be a set-up fight for Molly McCann. There's not too many fighters in that division that will be smaller than her, with less of a reach than her. And Hannah Goldy is that kind of fighter there where lesser reach. I think that they're very similar heights. This should be a win for Molly McCann. A pretty clear one at that if she doesn't get caught with anything, with a big shot or anything at all. Coming off, probably it's going to be one of the knockouts of the year, that last fight when they were last back in London. I mean, that was just an unbelievable kind of knockout. I remember watching that with my missus, and she was losing her shit watching that against Luana Carolina. A very dominant display against Ji Young Kim, getting inside the reach there, attacking the body, and really just winning that one there. I like her to beat Hannah Goldy. Hannah Goldy's only winning the UFC against Emily Whitmire. I think that the harder hitter is Molly McCann. I think she throws more. I think she will want it more, and for that, that's enough for me. But the betting line is kind of crazy as well. Like, some of the betting lines in this card are crazy. So you're like, oh, Molly McCann minus 300. I thought she was higher than that, actually. So there might be a little bit of value in that if you like parlays. I don't really want to have anything to do with that one, I don't think. But I've got Molly McCann. I think she could possibly get a stoppage. Decision is more likely. But Molly McCann is going to be the pick there, unfortunately, because I feel like I'm picking every kind of dog, every kind of fave fighter in this one here, and I'm a little bit like the dogs might be barking. Some like big dogs could come through, but to me, it just looks like a favourites kind of card, in my opinion. So Nikita Krylov against Alexander Gustafsson. Like I say, I'm a sucker for Nikita Krylov fights. I've bet him in so many spots. I've cashed him as an underdog. I've lost out in close fights like the Teixeira one. I thought he had a chance to win that one as a dog. Then I bet him as a favourite, and he gets submitted by Blachowicz. And it's like I say, I am a fan of his, but it's a hard guy to be a fan of, especially if you're betting on him. And then he's against Alexander Gustafsson here, who's not won a fight, I want to say, in 5 years. A long time now. His losses are to good guys, don't get me wrong. But I just kind of wonder where he's head at and where he is with his career. Does he really have to be taking this fight? Is he really motivated to make a run again at 205? Because I think there's guys at the top of that division that would hurt him right now. If his motivation's back and he's back to the old Alexander Gustafsson, then I absolutely think he could be a problem for some of the young guys up top. But I just don't see it. I think that he's been milling around, going up to heavyweight, coming down now. I think it's 2 years since he last fought. But it's hard to be confident in Nikita Krylov at like minus 190 like he is in the UK, minus 200 in some spots. I don't want to bet Krylov. I think this might be one of the only fights in his last probably 8 UFC fights that I've not bet anything. But I've kind of got a tingling for Gustafsson in this one. I don't know why, because like he's not shown anything for years. So I think I'm going to take Nikita Krylov, as much as it kind of pains me to do so, because like I say, I've got a funny feeling on Gustafsson, and it wouldn't surprise me if I get later on in the week, the line, I don't know what the line's going to do. I would guess it would tighten a little bit, but Gustafsson might end up not being the worst dog play if you can find the confidence in betting and putting money on him. I don't think I can. So as a pick, I'm going to go Nikita Krylov to win that one. The Paddy Pimblett against Jordan Leavitt is up here. I think this is a good matchup for Paddy Pimblett, and I've parlayed him up already. It's a little bit of a chalky parlay. I've got him with Mason Jones, but I think it's minus 117 it comes to. I don't mind that. I think that they're doing the right things with Paddy, getting him through his first contract, and then he'll start to make better money, and they're obviously going to start to challenge him a little bit more. Jordan Leavitt, like I say, I think there is paths to victory here. I don't think he's as people are calling him jobber this and this, and he's just like a sacrificial lamb. When I look at this stylistically, I think that Paddy is the far better striker. He's the far better jiu-jitsu grappler. Now, could he get taken down and maybe laid upon for a little bit by Jordan Leavitt? Absolutely he could. I mean, Kazula Vargas took down Paddy Pimblett. I don't think that's a great look. But eventually, Paddy finds a way to get finishes, and that's what he does. But when he gets taken in the second round and maybe going further on, that's when I'm maybe a little bit kind of worried about Paddy, because, like I say, the times that he has been taken into those second rounds, he's lost. Saw him back in that fight, if you watch, he really tied him up there, really kind of stopped Paddy from really doing anything. The Hermansson fight there, once it started going late, Paddy didn't really have a hell of a lot left in the kind of mid to later rounds there. But what he's shown in the UFC, comes out there, gets hit in the schnoz a few times against Luigi Vendramini, comes forward, hits him with an absolute massive shot, rocks Vendramini, gets him out of there. Then against Kazula Vargas, like I say, it wasn't a great start, but eventually finds a way to the back, gets the rear naked choke at the end of that first round. Like I say, I think there's many paths to victory here for Paddy Pimblett. Jordan Leavitt, I thought he was very lucky to come through that fight with Trey Ogden. I thought that was a very, very, very close split decision that just went his way. Matt Sayers, I think I was on him in that spot there. One via submission. Claudio Puelles lost that one there and then went over the kind of corpse of Mark Wyman where he slammed him and got that first round stoppage. I just don't see a hell of a lot from Leavitt that I like in this matchup. I don't see him for numerous parts of this fight getting him down and being heavy on top. He could do for certain spots, but outside of that, I don't think he has anything in the feet. I think he showed a little bit of a improvement against Ogden, but it wasn't much. He was throwing some kicks and so on. But Paddy's faster, hits harder. I think he's longer off the top of my head, and he's a great grappler as well. So minus 250, I felt that was, along with Mason Jones at minus 310. Put them ones together there and got minus 117 and put a few units on him there. I like Paddy. It does. I wouldn't. It would be kind of funny if Jordan Leavitt kind of won this fight and then twerks in London. I don't think that would go down well at all. I think it would be craziness. But it would be funny to see. But I think Paddy actually gets him out there. I think he stops him, gets a bigger contract. We start to see him slowly make those adjustments to facing better guys, and we'll see where he's going to end up in that division, whether he'll be a ranked guy. I'm not sure he will. But I think that division is too much of a sharks, infested shark water, that hitting the top 50 in that division is actually something that is should be a bit of an achievement, actually. But I've got Paddy to win this fight here. I think that he wins inside the distance is kind of how I see it in that one there. And my ass is melting with this heat, guys. I'm telling you, I'm not made for the heat, me. Whew. I don't know where you are in the UK, but I know London's like 39 degrees. I don't know how you guys down there are dealing with that, but that's rough. Co-main event of the night, Jack Hermansson. The action man, Chris Curtis, is filling in here for Darren Till, who, yet again, is injured and out of another fight. But it's a good replacement, I think, here. Curtis moving up again to 185, or he came up from 170, but it's up at 185, and continue a really good run of wins in the UFC and looking, I don't want to say dominant, but looking fairly competent at 185 and his debuts up there, and coming off a good win not too long ago against Adolfo Vera. Just looked very composed, stopped the takedowns, didn't get himself in any bad positions, and eventually got the dub there. Brendan Allen got a really good stoppage in the second round. He's a very, very versatile fighter, really good striker with good takedown defense, and that will take you far in the UFC. Phil Hawes, I think, is a great win there. You got the end of the first round. Phil Hawes, I think, is just one of the guys. I love watching him fight, and you've seen his last fight against Daron Win. He can put it all together. He can be a dominant guy, but I think there's always going to be a few chinks in his armor that you can get to that guy. Chris Curtis did that, caught him with a big counter, put him down there. But this is the guy that retired, stepped away, came back after the whole PFL thing there, where I think he lost twice in the same night against Magomed Kerimov and then Ray Cooper. He got knocked out in that one. So I'm interested to see, I mean, when was that fight against Vieira? Not even a month ago. So he's getting back in there short notice against the Joker, Jack Hermansson. I've been a big fan of Jack for many moons. Really, I like his pace. I like his aggressiveness. I like his ground game. His ground and pound, I think, is one of the best in the UFC. But it's whether he gets the fight there, because I think on the feet, I slightly lean Chris Curtis with his technique. I think he's got bigger power. But I think Jack's maybe got a pace that maybe, I know that Vieira couldn't really keep up for the 15 minutes, but I think he can blow himself out. He can push for 15 minutes hard, look for numerous takedowns, and I think he can get takedowns. If he gets it there one time and he finds it to a dominant position where he gets that ground and pound off, I think he could get Chris Curtis out of there. I also think he's got that submission, the kind of weird submissions that he's got there, the guillotine and so on, which he's caught people in before. This line's been going back and forward as well. I know that Chris Curtis was a pretty hefty dog. Now it's kind of moved to a pick'em. Jack Hermansson's plus 100 here in the UK. I think I'm going to lean... I think I'm going to lean Chris Curtis. As much as I want to take Jack Hermansson, I think that Chris Curtis is right now, he's in his pomp. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to kind of win fights. If he stops takedowns here, I think that he lands the more eye-worthy strikes. I think he gets the better strikes off. Like I say, I was pretty close to picking Jack Hermansson, but I think in a coin flip fight, I'll take Chris Curtis. But this might be the one where I come back and look at it and think I should have rolled with the Joker there, because I do think that if he gets this fight to the ground and gets in a dominant position, he can stop Curtis with that ground and pound. But it's just getting the fight there. Curtis has shown that he can stop takedowns and keep himself in the fight. So Chris Curtis, close decision is going to be my prediction there in that one. Main event. This is the fight that I really want to see for Tom Aspinall. I think this is the stylistic matchup. We're going to find out a lot more against Aspinall here. We've got Curtis Blaydes, 16-3 against Tom Aspinall, 12-2. We'll start off with Tom Aspinall. The guy's been soaring through his UFC run so far, but this is definitely his hardest fight to date. I thought that Volkov was going to give him problems in his last fight. Knife through butter. He destroyed him in that fight. And he looked like he was... I watched him, I was like, yeah, this kid's good, like really, really good. But then when this fight got made, I was like, but this is a stylistic match. This is probably the worst stylistic matchup for him in the UFC with the way Curtis Blaydes is, because I think he's in his UFC tenure, he's like attempted 120 takedowns and got a vast majority of them. He can do that for long spot. He can do this for the whole entire 15 minutes, 25 minutes, like we've seen against Volkov. He did tire himself out with the numerous takedown attempts, and eventually Volkov was starting to land elbows, starting to really put it on him a little bit. With he was just doing more, where Blaydes was just kind of holding on. Aspinall, we still to find out more of him. I think I want to see him get pushed into the second, into the third, especially against a guy like Curtis Blaydes. I think if that was to come to the fore here, where we're into the middle of the third round, I'm on the Blaydes' side here, where I think that he can get takedowns. Now, I think if you go back and watch the Stuart Austin fight, now you're going back like ages ago, there is parts of that fight there where Tom Aspinall gets taken down on numerous occasions. When was that fight? Christ, that's going back 7 years ago. Like, it's probably not even relevant me bringing that up, but it is what it is. I do think that Curtis Blaydes can get takedowns, but I also think that Tom Aspinall can snipe him from the outside. You look at the run that Tom Aspinall's had in the UFC, it's not your strongest showing, but he's did what he had to do. He went through Jake Collier fairly easily. Alan Baudot, he got through him very easily. Andrei Arlovsky was a little bit tentative, I thought, in the first round, came out in the second round and really got that early stoppage. Spivak, that was a short notice fight, which I don't think really helped him out too much. And then Volkov, I mean, he showed his jiu-jitsu skills there and absolutely destroyed him in that first round. he is definitely the striker here, on the feet there, that is the guy you're going to have to kind of keep an eye on, because I think he can land big strikes. Blaydes has been knocked out cold numerous times. He can also knock you out. You've seen him knocking out Dos Santos and so on. But he's obviously going to want to be keeping at distance, pot shotting away, looking to see the reads that Curtis Blaydes is giving him, because we know that he has to be looking for takedowns in this fight here. And if he gets one in the first couple of minutes of this fight, because he will come out, I think he will try them quick. Aspinall, I think, has to really land something early on to really get the respect from maybe Blaydes to back up and maybe not perpetually go for takedowns all the time. But like I say, Curtis Blaydes coming off a big knockout over Chris Daukaus, like a big right hand right on the temple, puts him down, gets some TKO victory there. I'm going to, like I said, I tried to fade Tom Aspinall last time out. That was the worst. That was a bad spot. It was just a bad bet. It's what it is. This, to me, I think is a better spot with a harder stylistic matchup where Tom Aspinall can absolutely win. I think he could probably win in any part of the fight, because I think he can catch Blaydes. If he can catch him with the right shot, he can knock him out. But I think the longer this fight goes, I think that Blaydes could make it ugly, nasty, drain the gas tank, and eventually get the stoppage. So I'm going to lean on the Curtis Blaydes side. But Tom Aspinall, he proved me wrong last time. He could. So again, if he comes through this matchup, then I do think he is ready for a lot of the guys at the top of that division. And we'll see. I think he could beat the guys at the top of the division in certain fights. But this here, I think for many of the heavyweights, it's the worst and toughest stylistic matchup. For me, I'm going to take Curtis Blaydes. I'm going to take him via round 2 TKO. I think that he gets the takedowns, gets some ground and pound. I think that Tom just eventually succumbs to ground and pound strikes there, and someone jumps in. So, yeah, that's my picks for UFC London, guys. It's been nice kind of speaking about the fights. I missed them last week there, so I know there's some of you guys there. The Paddy teabag is inevitable. Jack attack. Aspinall started as an underdog, slowly getting to a bigger favourite. I see that. How dare you, Willie? I think I know what that one's for. Craig can have Volkan a full up triangle. All it takes is a punch to the face from Volkan. That's it. So yeah, nice to be back, guys. If you're going to the card, look after yourself in that heat. Enjoy the fights. I'll be watching with a fan on me because it's to be warm this week as well. Until next week, guys, I think we're back for 277. All the very, very best. Take care. Hope you cash your bets and enjoy this heat if you're in the UK, because I'm not. I'm just melting away and I'm sitting inside looking at it thinking, how can people even go out in that? But all the very, very best. Take care. Speak to you soon.